All right. So, Cavernous Gate is a atmospheric death doom metal band from the drummer from Hellrunar. And I don't. If you're familiar with German black metal, that might ring a bell. I think most people might recognize him if you've seen like Imperium or Son of the Sleepless live. He's been a member of those groups to some degree over the last however many years, and he's quite a talented individual. I think that he creates a really interesting sort of funereal, but also surreal death doom metal record here that has a good mixture of sort of early 90s death metal traits, definitely leaning towards these sort of different strokes for German death metal in the 90s. We're not exactly listening to Atrocity here. We're kind of more the early crematory area. And if you're not familiar with that band, go do your own research there. But I'm talking about Crematory from Germany, and I mentioned it in the review, specifically which albums. Uh, Otherwise, we do get some of that uh, Imperium-esque, Imperium, however you would pronounce it, sorry, uh, atmosphere and austerity, and there's real deep attention paid to both atmosphere and presentation. So we get a lot of really unique keyboard sounds. We get in every song um, a lot of very intricate, both clean and distorted guitar layers, very spacious but sort of almost fragile production values, where I think he's sort of trying to invoke the sort of early, sort of peaceful British death doom sound just a little bit, but modernizing it. So he keeps that sort of brittle gothic feeling of it, but from like a little Imperium-esque touch to it. And I think it's really satisfying sort of timbre for a death doom record because it's so different. Um, and it's a shame that the death metal riffs just never really go anywhere on this record. It really does come down to sort of the more dramatic gothic metal moments and the uh, death doom procession, as it were, because they describe the record as if they're sort of a painterly or poetic description of great subterranean vistae and different worlds. And I really get it. I think he really lands all that. But when we dip into death metal, it doesn't always go anywhere. It's sort of like the engine starts, but we don't get into the intricacy or the real attack that sort of death metal needs. There's a couple of good riffs that pop up, but the complete song in terms of death metal only really happens when creating a slower doom shape. So the dynamic works for the fast and the slow and the loud and the quiet, and the record is quite successful in that regard. It's a big double LP, which I think is a beautiful thing to own, and sort of I think it would last a long time on most people's shelves in that regard. But I don't think that the death metal part of it was developed in such a way that it could necessarily like push like the latest Ruins of Beverast record off of your turntable. Uh, Even though I think I would recommend this to someone who enjoys that, you just might maybe you want to pick up a Secrets of the Moon record too, or kind of get a little bit more of a different gothic vibe. So it's a very good death doom metal record, but only because it's so different and it's so thorough in exploring the imagery in the lyrics. And uh, I found it was an experience where I didn't really love it all the way through when I was listening to it, but I wanted to keep returning to it, and that's a good sign because it means there's a something to it in the long term that might appreciate. My only thing is I think that the earlier tracks, when he did a split with Son of the Sleepless, they featured a little bit of maybe more of a blackened death metal intent, and in this they're more going for a little bit more of an old school touch with this one. I think that the blackened guitar voicing was really helpful on those songs on the split, and here it's sort of missing to complete the sort of atmospheric impact of each song. Um, that said, I had a great time listening to this record. I think it's sort of a kind of the odd sort of out of the blue sort of record that uh, it should be appreciated more. And I hope that he iterates more on this idea in exactly this elaborate way, because it'll get there very quickly. I think there's just a little bit of tuning that will sort of push it over the edge and sort of gain bigger notice. Otherwise, like these are the type of songs I'd love to see live. I think that having witnessed some Empyreum, uh, like that would be really something special. Uh, so a moderate recommendation for this one, moderately high, and decide for yourself. Read over the review. I was pretty thorough with my thoughts, so pick from that what you will and make your own decisions. There you go.